Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Bunny Musings. This is episode 9 of Bunny Musings, and this is Bunny. And I have decided that seasons are currently arbitrary in my life, and if I'm spending my days indoors, then I get to celebrate whatever season I want it to be. And, I went to the bookstore the other day and I was like, huh, I haven't read this very autumnal book. And I was like, I'm gonna read it, and I don't care that summer is about to start. I don't particularly enjoy summer a lot of the times. I actually read some summer romances in the late winter, early spring time. So we're all out of sorts, and it doesn't matter. And so in my bed, it can be whatever season I want it to be, and that's what I've decided. And so I just finished reading The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Laurie Gilmore, and I'm going to talk about it with spoilers. Okay? So if you haven't read the book, um, go check the content warnings, but this will have spoilers. Yeah, anyways. And so, I rated it 3 stars, mostly just because it got a little repetitive. Like, it was still enjoyable, but it was just like, okay, we get it. And yeah, that was basically what knocked it down, was the writing specifically, but the actual, story of it, it's supposed to be fun and cozy and, low stakes, just like a relaxing environment type of thing. So the leads of the book are Logan and Jeannie, and when I tell you that immediately after reading this book, I saw her name, I don't know how many times in the book, and immediately after returning it um, on Libby, I had to go look into Storygraph to be like, wait, what was her name again? Because I literally forgot it. Like, her name just, I don't know. It was certainly a name I've never seen before, and maybe that's why I didn't remember it, but I was just like, what? Okay. Anyways, so it's about Jeannie and Logan, and I am going to talk about why there are some serious issues underlying this very seemingly cozy romance. And so there were quite a few instances in this book where Jeannie, she promised Logan on multiple occasions to tell him if she found out something about who had been tormenting her in her adjustment to this new life in Dream Harbor and running the Pumpkin Spice Cafe. And she had multiple opportunities to tell him things, even when they were on good terms, when they weren't having a little tussle about things or how they were treating each other. And there is a teensy bit of a spooky mystery element, but it's so minuscule that it's not even worth being oh, this is spooky, because it wasn't. It was just more girl, girly, um, hello is more of the vibe. It was this is a security concern, why are you being chill about this? um, but yeah, so she had multiple opportunities to tell Logan, hey, people have been messing with the cafe. This is kind of off for how things should be. Like, things aren't working and things are going missing, and somebody stood at my back door and broke the glass. You know, like, they actually broke the glass of the back door of the cafe. And I'm like, girl, there was a whole man with a baseball bat at your back door, and you just, one, didn't call the man who literally said, if anything happens, let me know and I will come help you. You know, who cares if it was 2 a.m.? If somebody was at my back door at 2 a.m. with a baseball bat and they broke glass, not only would the police be called, but also, like, hello, if I had a man, like, on the line. You know, like, at least for, like, emotional support. Like, isn't that part of, like, what relationships are? Is like, oh, this scary thing happened to me, and, like, we can co-regulate each other as mammals. Like, this is this is part of the vibe, right? Anyways, so yeah, I was like, if this was a horror novel, she would be a goner. Simply because she just didn't tell anybody else what was happening. You know, like, I know Logan kind of knew, and he literally was like, promise me you'll tell me. And she said, yeah, Logan, I promise, blah, blah, blah. And she literally didn't. And so, like, for as much of a let me fix it and let me care for her kind of man that he seemed to be, he wasn't as bothered by that lack of communication as he should have been. Because it's it's like, I don't know. Like, he was a bit growly and, like, protective in some ways, but ultimately he kind of took her word for it when she was, like, downplaying that it wasn't that big of a deal. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, somebody was literally breaking in at night, and you just put on a little TV show and went back to bed? Like, hello? Didn't even call the police, texted your younger brother who was, like, across the country or something? Because the book is set in New England, which is on the East Coast, and her brother, Bennett, was, like, on the West Coast. He was in California. And I'm like, what is he gonna do from California for you? And he was literally like, did you call the police? And she was like, no. I was a little baffled by that. Just, like, from a characterization standpoint, okay, cool. She's not like a damsel in distress or whatever, you know. But a confident woman can still be reasonably concerned when there's, like, a security issue. You know, a confident woman doesn't have to be like, oh, whatever, there was this man at my back door, haha, I don't need anybody to come save me because I have my own baseball bat. Like, literally, nobody thinks that. Like, at the very least, you know, like, there's safety in the herd sometimes. And I was just like, why? Like, tell a girlfriend, like, tell somebody. Tell the man you literally were making out with in that same alleyway. Like, tell somebody. Yeah, I was a little bit baffled. And now, as for Logan, he had some very major trust issues and abandonment issues, which that was the part of the book that was rehashed over and over and over again. I swear, practically every chapter, it was, oh, my ex did this and Lucy did that. And not even like externally to Jeannie in a way where she could understand where he was coming from. It was more like in an internal scope of like, I proposed to her at like the Christmas tree lighting thing, and she left town the next morning, and I was just like a stop on her self-discovery journey. Like, literally, that same thing copy pasted a few times is what it felt like, which was fine. I just, you skim eventually. But what got me, not only, like, obviously, like, when you're having something you're dealing with, but you're not addressing the root cause, if you're not working on it, then obviously you circle the same path over and over again because the lesson hasn't been learned. And not even like lesson, but it's just like you haven't addressed the emotions and the thought patterns and the things that this incident has brought up for you. You haven't like addressed that within yourself, and it's impacting your current choices, and it's impacting how you interact with people and your relationships with them, and like forming new connections with people, and like etc. And so at the very end, what got me is it said that he had a therapist who was trying to help him sort out his worth separate from Jeannie, which great, cool. You know, it said there was like a line, I think, in the last chapter or the epilogue, where it was like his therapist was helping him see that even if Jeannie left, he would be okay, or something like that. But I think it's good advice, but it's not the right advice for Logan specifically. Because throughout the book, a lot of like the reason why they sort of had a secret relationship for some time, like he is like the town charity case basically. Like his father left when he was really young, and his mother died when he was really young, and so he grew up raised by his grandparents. And like he knows everybody because it's a small town and they all took care of him. And he's friends with people, and they all saw that his ex rejected his proposal. And it's more that he felt embarrassed and shame for like how fast he falls in love, how deeply he loves, and how freely he gives it, like how generous he is with his love. It was more like he feels embarrassed and ashamed by those qualities within himself than he believes that he's not worth something outside of a relationship with somebody else. That was kind of more of how it read to me, was that because he kept going like, everybody saw and everybody's gonna know, and I don't want people to know, and I don't want people to see things go wrong for me again. Like that, I feel like is a very different problem than, or like a very different thought process and emotion than I am nothing without her. Because he wasn't like feeling a type of way about himself necessarily, or at least that's not how it came through in the writing. It was more like that was really embarrassing, and I never want that to happen again. But it was impacting how he um, was trying to build a relationship with Jeannie, and he actually ended up hurting Jeannie because he was acting like she was something to hide a little bit, or something that he uh, like could cast aside easily if it got public in some way, even in small ways. And obviously, nobody likes to be treated like that, so Jeannie was very much like, that hurt my feelings. Like, please don't just toss me aside when we were having a moment privately. Like, but yeah, so he definitely kind of has rose colored glasses on. He's very like quintessential hero type of male lead to me. But yeah, I don't think he has a self-worth problem. I think he has a shame problem, because there's nothing wrong with having those qualities. Like, those qualities in themselves aren't inherently bad. You know, loving deeply, caring about people, like having capacity to give that to your romantic partner. And um, what else? Oh, like being generous with like that amount of care and emotion. Like, there's nothing wrong with having those feelings. Does he need to practice discernment with who he gives those feelings to? Yeah, because he learned with his ex that not everybody can handle that level of devotion, that level of love and whatnot. Um, so yeah. And also, as for kind of like their dynamic together, the way it was written, I don't think it's entirely believable based on like their internal point of views, because it has both in the book, and it kind of doesn't really tell you when the perspective switches, except for like saying their names in the prose and whatnot. But I don't believe that Jeannie was as into Logan as he is into her. Like, the author, Laurie Gilmore, she does a very good job writing his yearning and his attraction to her, and his like appreciation of the different qualities that she has, like the little goofy ones and the little cozy ones, and just like things that make her stand out to him, the things he's fallen to love, basically. But Jeannie's perspective kind of reads more like, oh wow, this sexy farmer man is really nice to me. And it doesn't necessarily get into the qualities that she likes about him to like the same extent or the same depth as Logan's perspective. So it kind of just reads like he's like, I love you, and like he actually like has emotion backing that statement. And then she's like, I love you too. But it kind of feels more like a response because it's expected, rather than how she actually feels. Because not a lot of time has passed, and they haven't spent a ton of time together. They kind of have. They have spent alone time together. But yeah, it just the way it reads, if Logan was being really discerning, I don't know that he would like be as all in as he is. um Kind of like knowing Jeannie's perspective, because yeah, she thinks he's hot, and yeah, she thinks he's really nice and he's caring, and that he like has done nice things for her and helped her. But I think she kind of sees him as a physical being more than a like emotional and mental being, which, you know, it is what it is. They ended up together. Is just basically, but yeah, those were kind of like all of the problems I had listed out. But it was a very cozy read, you know. It was just like new town, small town, very interesting characters. I don't know. It was nice that it was kind of meta in some places, where it was like, oh, the book club is reading these really spicy novels, and like, oh, stay far away from those people, is like what Logan warned Jeannie, and she ended up joining the book club. And I was like, huh, like the readers the readers are the people to stay away from. Is kind of funny. um but yeah, anyways, it was interesting. It was cozy, you know. If it was fall and I had a pumpkin spice drink, because I cannot do caffeine. If I had a pumpkin flavored something, um, I think it would be nice. Or maybe some warm cookies, you know, like a nice vibe, an overcast day, a sweater. It would be nice to read that. And maybe it kind of gives the vibe of a story you could read over again. Just because it's like one of those things where it's you don't have to really pay attention too much because you're not going to miss anything. It's kind of, it's like one of those cozy TV shows you put on in the background. That was the vibe. But yeah, so I rated it a 3 stars. I probably will read the other books just because why not, you know? Unless it, like, the trope is offensive to me. I don't mind the grumpy sunshine trope. It is kind of overdone sometimes. This book, it wasn't necessarily like he was a grumpy guy, just more so that he was really guarded and hurt with her specifically in like a romantic context, because he was like warm with everybody else. So that's not a true grumpy to me. But yeah. And so I don't know. If you've read it, let me know your thoughts. But yeah, this was episode 9 of Bunny Musings. This was funny. And very soon, we will be at episode 10. Yay! So we'll see whatever chaos I end up stirring up. Yeah, I hope you're having a good whenever, and see you next time. Bye! Okay, one more thing about the Pumpkin Spice Cafe that I totally forgot to say in my original recording. So this is editing bunny. But anyways, okay, so Jeannie finds out that it was actually the old man Norman, who was like helping her learn how to run the cafe because he was like a longtime employee who worked with her Aunt Dot, which she got the cafe from because her Aunt Dot is like on vacation, retired, something like that. And she finds out that he is the one who has been tormenting her, basically, and like creating disturbances, making things go missing, making things go wrong, and she's new in town, and he's supposed to be the one helping her the most, and he's supposed to be reliable, and yeah, it's just the thing that gets me is she forgives him instantly. She's like, don't even worry about it. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? Don't even worry about it? He had a guy break your window and you're not even concerned about it? Literally, all she did was like take money out of his last paycheck after he quit to cover the cost of fixing things that he broke. And I'm like, girl, were you not scared at all? Like, did you not care? And it's funny because the whole point of her quirkiness that Logan falls in love with at the beginning of the book is she's like hearing all these like scratching noises outside in the back alley behind the cafe, and it's keeping her up at night. Like she literally hasn't slept. And like the first time they meet is her like extremely sleep deprived holding a bat what the hell, holding a baseball bat because she's like about to swing it at him because she thinks he's the one that's been like making the noises, or like he's an intruder or something. And it's like, how are you as a character suspicious but not scared? Like, how is it keeping you up at night, but you're not, like, actually emotionally impacted by the events that happen? Because it's almost like she doesn't even, like, have a moment of, like, frustration or anger or anything like that. She's just, like, extremely benevolent in her, like, dealing with him. Like, her aunt is more stern with Norman than anything. And then it turns out that Norman actually wanted to buy the cafe and he's in love with Aunt Dot. And so is Aunt Dot in love with him. And it's just like, okay, but this still. And he's like, I'm sorry, like it went out of hand, and Logan's like still upset with him. And he's like, I'm and Norman's like, I'm sorry, and like it went too far, and it's still like you could have actually traumatized this girl. And I don't know, and she just like brushes it off like it's nothing. Cause I get that it's a small town and that things are generally safer or whatever. But it's like the people who are causing you harm are the people you see every day. These are people you know personally who are causing you to lose sleep, causing you stress, causing problems for you. And it's just kind of crazy to be like, oh, don't worry about it, old man. I know you're in love with my aunt, and yeah, everything's chill now. Um, so yeah, her brushing that off doesn't make any sense with like how she was introduced to Logan and her thinking that there's like a ghost and it was actually a cat. And then more problems started happening at the cafe, which were when Norman took over. But it's just like, I don't know. It was unserious in a security issue kind of way, which is a very serious kind of topic, you know? Especially because she's a single young woman in a new town. Or just that she's a single young woman, period. You know? Who cares if she has a baseball bat when, I don't know. But, anyways, yeah, that was the point I needed to add. And I, I don't know how I forgot that, but it was truly baffling. Um, so I had to include it because it just kind of rounds out Jeannie as a person. So, yeah, this book is seriously like word choices away from being a thriller. Like, thinking of all of the things, like the spooky kind of vague background of like the young woman moves to a new town to start a new life. Also, the fact that she literally found her boss keeled over, and that's like why she was leaving to go to the small town, why she was leaving the city. Like, so already spooky. Then noises are happening. Turns out to be a cat, whatever. Okay, but then more things start happening, and there's like a man, and there's interference and whatnot. Like, literally, just with word choice alone, this entire novel, the lens could shift and it could become a thriller because of just like the female leads or just everybody's inability to see danger or anything like that. Like, it kind of gives the vibe of like when people change the, what is it, the soundscape and the editing and just like various things. Like, people can adjust that in movies and make like a happy film horror and vice versa. You know, it's just like that's kind of the vibe it gives. But yeah, that is my final edition. Maybe, unless I think of something else.